Call to order the Budget and Personnel Committee meeting November 8th, 2022 at 5 p.m. And we have no public comment, so I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And our first item on the agenda is consider changes to the personnel manual, and I'll turn that over to Mr. Talbot.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Currently, our sick leave policy allows employees to take sick leave to care for basically immediate family that live within their household. I have seen a real need here in the last few years to take care of our elderly parents who not necessarily are living in the same household. There are several I can think of right at the moment that are in that situation, and we are all getting older, and so are our folks. And I would like to propose a change to the personnel policy manual that allows for sick leave to be taken for the care of immediate family and or mother and or father, even if that family member is not living in the household, and that would be limited to mother and or father. It's a simple addition to the sick leave policy.
What about a child?
Well, in most cases,
You got somebody sitting out front there that's got one child that has serious issues.
yes,
That could need to have to go.
and we're kind of playing and not getting into the individuals, but kind of playing with the odds here. I've seen several situations where if the employee was allowed to take sick leave to help an elderly parent, it would have benefited them. There are lots of other situations too, but the most common one I see is the one I'm proposing. Yes.
I believe it used to be this way. Anyway, am I right? I think so. I think it used to be this way. I have an issue with it limited to mother and father when, how can you tell an employee who has an adult child who may, God forbid, end up in the hospital for a week or two, might need some extra care or something.
Well, that's still in here, right? You're not taking that out, children.
No, but if I'm not
The
mistaken,
child has to live within the household, though.
I believe that, like you, that was added later on.
Child has been
If I'm not mistaken,
Yeah,
I want to say,
Same household as the employee.
yeah.
That I don't know.
and that not saying that that's not a valid reason to use sick leave either. It's just that I was trying to do an incremental change here and use the one that I'd seen
Right.
the most here.
And I totally get that. I'm totally for it. I just, how could you tell, well, if it's your mom or dad, it's
A
fine.
parent's more valuable than a child.
Yeah. I would like to see it include children. And it's not that you would fall in that situation a lot either.
An adult child not living at home.
Yeah. You've got a couple situations like that.
Well, they would fall under almost the dependent category. You don't have dependents anywhere. That's a more commonly used term nowadays, is dependent. Right? So dependent, talking like insurances and medical, you can claim anybody as a dependent. They can be an adult, but they can be some children claim their parents as dependents.
At some point, yes.
You may be looking at an easy rectification just in your language. You add dependents, parents or dependent children.
And or dependent children.
And or dependent children, that would cover. Because a lot of people may have a child who's older who necessarily might be on their own, but they still fall as a dependent of the adults too. That's not uncommon.
Would a dependent necessarily be living in the same household?
No, not necessarily. That's what I'm saying. That's where you run into that. They may not be in the same household, but they are dependent. They may live alone, they may live with another individual, they may share a roommate type situation, but they can still
Would-
legally and medically fall as a dependent of someone else.
So it wouldn't be the same definition, dependent, wouldn't be the same definition as the IRS?
No, this is like a medical dependent child, okay? You could get that clarified, that's, often caregivers have a dependent they care for. And that person is signed over their rights and their access to information to another person as a dependent upon that person. But that would cover, I guess ideally you don't want parents taking just their, 55-year-old parent taking their 30-year-old child to the doctor type thing, or not. Is that what you?
I just know that, well, let's go back to Robbie. You're sitting here in this room. Your son had a car accident a couple years ago. You had to take time off to go to Baltimore to be with him. He don't live in your household, but you had to
I use vacation.
take care of him.
Yes.
And like I say, I don't think this will come up in many situations. But we do have an employee in this building that has a child that does have medical needs sometimes, that the mother has to be there with him sometimes. And the child doesn't live at home, and he's on his own and all that, but, that's an only child there. Somebody's got to be with him sometimes when it comes down to if he's got to have surgery or, something like that.
Do you want to take this back, Mike, and maybe give it some more?
Can't we just amend the motion to include dependent children?
Well, I mean, we could do that, or I could go back and come up with a clearer definition. I'd tell you, I would really like to clearly define what we're going to do, because, and I briefed through this section of the employee manual again today, and if it's not specific, it gets misconstrued in many instances, and I'd really like to clearly define this before we do it.
Yeah, I'd like to see it go back to you and maybe incorporating this in, maybe do a little more research as to how maybe it's done in other areas to include, because I agree with Denise wholeheartedly. I mean, you need to include that type situation 100%. And to see how that's actually done. All right, so you'll go back and,
Yep.
and bring that back to us. We'll schedule a
right.
meeting for next month or whatever. Next item on the agenda is the LPR readers. So this went to Public Safety. Public Safety recommended installation of the LPRs. I believe from there it comes to us and we approve it and send it up to full council, so I don't foresee any issues here. We just need a vote to send it to council.
I'll make a motion that we pass this along to full council.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So that goes up to full council.
December.
And the next item on the agenda, and the last item, is closed meeting. So I'll entertain a motion at this time to council convene a closed meeting pursuant to section 2.2-3711A1 Code of Virginia for discussion and review of specific personnel issues.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That carries.